Welcome back to the Weekly News Roundup. I hope you guys are having fun on this holiday weekend. I hope nobody got injured at Black Friday. Although I think that the days of going crazy over that, unless you got run over by it in the grocery store because they had like a 20% sale off on the bread or something. Because right now it looks like I actually saw statistics saying people right now are more excited to get food for Christmas than anything else. Thanks, Bidenomics. But anyway, we have a somewhat typical lineup. A little shorter show today because it is the holiday week. So a lot of our news is U.S. based. So we do have a couple articles in privacy, security, business, and just 2 SillyVille articles. And then we do have a full suite of banned news. Actually, I think we have 3 or 4 articles in banned news. So stay tuned over that. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get started. First up, MIT review gives us Meta is giving researchers more access to Facebook and Instagram data. Oh, joy. As if the first round of human experiments that they did pushing depressive stuff on people, making sure nobody else goes off and offs themselves, wasn't enough. Now let's go ahead and give data again. The only saving grace on this is that the data being given is all publicly available anyway. Of course, the bad news is Facebook started rolling out that everything is public data. You know, it's like you got to fight Facebook to not have something public. Like, remember when Facebook first started, more privacy based, and every single thing you do is private unless you explicitly mark it as somewhere else, and somebody had to be tightly connected to a double opt-in friend request for anybody to see any of your information. And then it's eventually like, hey, we're going to make a lot more money if we just open this up. And now everything is open completely accessible on the internet. So basically what this is they're doing a new API, which basically queues, sorts, and organizes all data on basically any Meta program, right now being Facebook and Instagram. They're going ahead and doing that, and then the researchers can gain access to this data. Of course, just like those guys over in the UK a couple weeks ago, we are being very careful about who we have access to this. Here's a bunch of money. Okay, you're going to have access to it, you know. But gaining access to this, you can quickly see and sort and analyze all of the data. And so that's kind of what they're doing. So I'm just glad I got off of Facebook a long time ago. And guys, stop using this crap. But I need to connect with my family. Tell your family, if you'd like to continue to connect with me, you got to find a way that's not Facebook. I got news for you. I mean, I know this is going to be hard to hear. I know it. But listen, hear me out. For thousands of years, we connected without Facebook. Facebook has really only been around for the modern, like the average person, roughly 15 years. Prior to that, we had other means of communicating. Go back to those means of communicating. Get off of Facebook. Tell your family, get off of Facebook. Say, I'm closing the Facebook account. If you want to hear from me, you have to reach out to me in other means. And if they don't reach out to you, they don't love you enough to reach out to you. Don't worry about it. Or, hey, you can take the initiative, whatever the case happens to be. But that's what Facebook is up to with its research API. Okay, that is the best privacy news of the week. From here on out, oh God, the world is going to end, folks. First, let's go over to the UK. The UK awards a £330 million contract for the NHS. So the NHS is the National Health Services. This is basically UK's centralized government. They issue this to none other than Palantir. If you've not been around this channel long enough to remember me talk about Palantir, this company makes Google look innocent again. This company... Okay, first let's start with the name. Palantir, the name is directly derived from those spheres of Lord of the Rings that can see all things connected to those spheres. And that's their business model. We're going to use any method and every method possible, legal or illegal, to create a giant database of anybody and everything and then sell access to this database. They got a lot of negatives selling access to the database to ICE agents for deportation of immigrants. That would be the only thing I'd necessarily agree with because come into the country legally, and I don't have a problem with you. Sneak over the border, I would like you to get expelled, and if Palantir helps me do that, Congratulations. All right. But if you want to come legally, I'm all for it. There's legal channels. Please come legally. We want the people who can come legally and have a good job. All right. That's cool. But don't be sneaking on over the border. But they were used controversially. We covered, remember the one story we covered was in New Orleans, where the law enforcement in New Orleans was using Palantir to do predictive policing, basically arresting people before they actually did any crimes, good old Minority Report style. And then from there, they were selling access to the CIA, now the UK Ministry of Defense, and now they're working with the health records. Now, UK's health government comes in and says, come on, they're not going to have access to the names. It's just the anonymized data. Okay, so 6 people in the country are pinging the database as having some weird form of stomach cancer. And then over on Facebook, because of course they're on Facebook, oh, pray for me, I got cancer. Ah, got it. Made the connection. Anonymized health data is not anonymized, okay? Is too easy to put together. There is a reason dental records are used to identify unknown bodies. Okay? And so a lot of this up here is just, more left-wing political talking points. And then we get down here. Down here is what we get some Amnesty International stuff. Palantir is a very troubling choice of service provider. You think? They given to the human rights controversy surrounding the company, said Peter Frankenthal, and Amnesty's business and human rights director. Any NHS public procurement tenders whose activities have been linked to serious human rights abuses, as is with the case with Palantir, should be excluded on the grounds of grave professional misconduct as permitted under procurement law. Excuse me. So basically, of course, the NHS comes back and they say, oh, don't worry. They're not going to be able to access the data without a lot of strict safeguards. Yeah, just like that other company we talked about 2 weeks ago, was it? Where they said, we're not going to sell any data to any insurance companies. Oh, the insurance companies have it. You said you weren't going to do that. Oh, that was years and years and years ago. That's overridden now. Come on. We made some change on the website quietly and you never objected. Yeah, okay. There you go. So yeah, Palantir. Now, if you're like, okay, that's UK. Whew, dodged a bullet on that one. Palantir's not going to get my stuff. Just don't worry. This is the new program that was just identified, and it's not necessarily classified, but it's considered sensitive, which means information is technically not supposed to get out to the public, but whoops, it is. This has a generic name called DAS. Simply because they changed the name to prevent it from sounding worse than it was, but it's still just as bad. DAS stands for something, and I'll remember what it is eventually, or we'll see it in the article. Basically, this makes all of those things they were doing under the Patriot Act look like small peanuts. It makes Edward Snowden's revelations go, oh, good, they're only doing that. Okay, this is the White House, and they're funding the program through weird grants, so it does not have to be audited by the government accountability offices. DAS, Data Analytics Services. Doesn't that sound non-ominous? So it's funded through them, and it created a giant database which connected nearly every citizen into it as far as metadata, who's talking to who. In some reports, this report says no conversations were recorded. Other reports said conversations were reported. So I'm not sure if it's conversations were reported or not reported. Now, one company, though, was central to all of this, and that was AT&T. Now, we talked about this in the past. We're going back 5 years ago. So if you've been around the channel 5 years or longer, 5 years ago, we talked about the data retention policies, whereas T-Mobile, Sprint at that time, Verizon, they were keeping records for maybe 2 years at the absolute latest. AT&T was keeping them seemingly indefinitely, and nobody figured out why. Well, it turned out the reason why is that under the Obama administration, they started funding AT&T to curate a database which any law enforcement agent could access without a warrant. And then they were able to put together all sorts of connections based on the information that was all inside of that database. All right. Now, this, again, relied on the AT&T structure. So you'd be in the database if you have an AT&T phone. You're in the database. If you've used AT&T service since cell phones existed on AT&T network, you're going to be in the database. If you have talked on the phone with somebody with AT&T services, you're going to be in the database. They were only making connections to people who are being looked at. Come on. You had to figure out who everyone was talking to sequentially down the line. Come on. Eventually, we're all connected to Kevin Bacon. If you can see the flowchart of the data, Kevin Bacon is in the middle of this, and everybody else goes out from Kevin Bacon. And there's no more than 7 connections out to Kevin Bacon. That's how this is working, just so you know. They should have called it the Bacon Analytical Database. But what happened is this first came out and was exposed in, I think, 2013. So the Obama administration said, oh, we can't fund that right now because it's drawing attention to it. We don't want it to be discovered. It was almost discovered. That's when they changed their name to Data Analytics Services. And then it was reinitiated under Donald Trump. I know, golden boy, perfect man, Donald Trump reinitiated this for a couple of years. It was stopped again under Joe Biden for the first year. And then they looked at this and go, hey, we're not getting this data anymore. Well, got to go refund AT&T again. And then the Biden administration started fully funding the program again. So it used to be called HIDTI, whatever that is. And there was another one, which is funded by White House's Office of National Drug Control Policy. So Nancy Reagan, you started all this, didn't you? Just say no to ONDCP. Come on, guys. Let's do it. Okay. HIDTA stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. So this started with looking at Los Angeles, Houston, Miami, New York, and the entire U.S.-Mexico border, considering these high drug trafficking areas. So they targeted those in the 1990s, and then they expanded it greatly to the point where the full nationwide program was launched under Obama. And then what happened is once this was discovered, it's been funded and defunded a few times, but all of this through White House and all of this through grants that if any of us did this would look like a money laundering scheme. All of this was to prevent it from going back into the government accountability offices to prevent the program from being discovered. So now Wyden knows about it, so they'll yell about it a little bit in Senate, and then nothing's going to happen. But ideally, this needs to be completely declared illegal and force AT&T to block this, and then maybe we need to pass some telecom data collection laws to say, yeah, you're not allowed to keep data any longer than is absolutely necessary. But of course, since we know that we are the enemy and they are the masters, that probably is not going to happen. Well, if you do want to get away from AT&T, you can jump over to Mint Mobile. This is our affiliate link for the day. TLM.li/MM. This is going to get you really good service. This is what I've been using now for, is it 3 or 4 years? I've been using it. Works perfectly. It runs on the T-Mobile towers. So if you have T-Mobile service where you're at, this is going to save you a ton of money. I was paying the minimum plan I could. I think I was paying $60 to $80 a month with Verizon. I switched over to Mint Mobile. I am paying $180 a year for cell phone. Now, that's the minimum plan. So it's $15 a month if you get, I think $15 a month, I think is the one if you buy like a year out in advance. So you can buy 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months out in advance. The more you pay out in advance, the cheaper the plan gets. They go all the way up to the unlimited, and they do not limit your hotspot. So you can see, that's that one. I want to see what the prices were on there. Okay. So here's the 3-month plan. You're going to get $45 for 3-month plan. So over here, the current plan, this is $45 for 3 months. After that test plan is over, you can do $75 for 3 months, $120 for 6 months, $180 for 12 months. So this is the one I use. And since I do not use a ton of mobile data, I just get the minimum plan, which is 5 gigabytes, $180 for an entire year. And the service works great. It also has the ability that at least over here in the United States, you can anonymize the data. There's steps you can take to anonymize the data. You can use prepaid debit cards if you don't want to put your real bank account money in there, things like that. TLM.li/MM if you want to help support the channel and get a better phone service. All right, so with this, we're going to jump on over to security news. So in security news, first up is we have a new way that malware is seeking to avoid detection by antivirus, trigonometry. Trig. Okay, I know all you mathematical guys that are cringing now. It's like, I couldn't figure out algebra 1. No, this is trig. All right, so trigonometry, of course, is the mathematical study of calculations around angles and things like this. So what happens is many antivirus programs, what they do to run their systems to look for detection is they will sandbox things. And in the sandboxing, as you're doing things, the mouse is going to make statistical jumps because it doesn't track your mouse 100%. That would take too much system bandwidth. So it does like a pulse, where is the direction of the mouse cursor at any given time? Well, based on where those angles are, malware authors have discovered that you can predict if you're in a antivirus virtual machine isolation chamber by looking at how smooth and the directions that the mouse pointers go, because they use calculations to point things around. And so what they've done is they have programmed in, here's some dead code, here's some dot detections. So this is basically what they're doing. So they're creating calculations as to where the mouse cursor is from point to point. And if they find any anomalies in smooth mouse functioning, they shut themselves down to avoid detection by the antivirus based on trigonometrical calculations. So there you go, guys. Stay in school, and you too can write malware. I think that's the bad message, but you kind of get the idea, right? I don't know. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, Tor browser, the Tor project rather, removed several hundred relays associated with a suspicious cryptocurrency scheme. There was a little bit of debate about whether this was good or bad. Of course, if you're unfamiliar with the Tor network, this is, even the government does not know, it cannot track your traffic through here without doing some really, really, really high level stuff. The reason is because Tor starts at an entry node and then it bounces through two separate jurisdictions to go to an exit node. You need to control the entry and the exit node and be monitoring the data packets of every single device in there in order to get around it. And since the entry and the exit nodes are going to be in different jurisdictions, it's very, very hard to do that. So there have been a few people who use Tor who have been de-anonymized based on doing stupid things like, getting into Tor saying, I'm private, and then logging into your public Facebook page. Well, that'll mess you up. Also, it'll mess you up if you open up a file on the Tor browser and the file that you open up gets around Tor's DNS and works around other factors. So there's other things that it can do. But Tor itself is extraordinarily secure, and they do this by having this constant relays of servers run by volunteers. Well, what has happened is one company called the Tor Project, what they wanted to do is they wanted to incentivize people to create Tor nodes. So they created a cryptocurrency scheme around it where as long as your Tor node was up on their particular network, you were going to get paid for running the Tor nodes. Well, this ran in counter interest to the Tor project, and they said, well, if people are spinning up a bunch of these servers because they're making cryptocurrencies on them, first, it's going to attract the type of people we probably don't want in our network. Second, it's going to undermine the reputation and the security of the network because some of these services are running on nodes that are not actually meeting the Tor requirements. And so what they did is they made the decision. Now they put it out. They put out a risk assessment, and then the core team voted and said, yeah, we're going to shut these down. So they shut down several hundred of these nodes. Now, Tor did not specifically name out the Tor project, but it was pretty clear from people who dug very deeply into it that it was the Tor project that Tor shut down, causing their stock to completely tumble as soon as that happened. Tor just came out and said, well, we're going to work on our own peer-to-peer networking system like Tor. I would probably think about avoiding it. I'd stick to Tor personally. But that's what Tor's up to. I agree with this movement with Tor. So we'll see. And because I really think that it's going to attract more people who are interested in Tor for the purpose of Tor rather than, hey, if I run these Tor nodes, we're going to make a lot of money, because then you got a guy that's just spinning up a bunch of stuff to make some money, and that's a little shady. So I agree with what Tor did on there. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments. Do you think Tor did the right choice here, or was this kind of problematic? All right, and our last article here in security is, yes, Windows Hello is Windows get hacked. It's not exactly as good. Now, this did not look at the camera functions, this looked at the fingerprinting function. So if you have one of these Windows computers that you're signed in with the fingerprint and you're going, ooh, I got the fingerprint, I can get in. And it's not like, hey, I set this up, somebody can find a way around it. No. What the researchers found is if you have a fingerprinting device on your computer, they can get into it, whether you've used Windows Hello or not, because they have found a lot of insecurities in the protocol. So you can read, I think it's this one here, the Blackwing HQ blog post. Massive blog post, really fascinating. I read the whole thing. It's great. You should read it if you're interested in security stuff. We're just going to use the Tech Radar summary here just to illustrate some of the basics of what happened. So this was initiated by, I believe it was actually by Microsoft, who sent it to this hacking group to say, hey, point out the vulnerabilities, give us some ideas. So this group started out, Blackwing Intelligence started out with 3 laptops. They used a Dell Inspiron 15, they used a Lenovo ThinkPad T14, and they used a Microsoft Surface Pro. And all of them had the fingerprint ID, and the specific task of the project was to find vulnerabilities in the fingerprinting ID function of Windows Hello. Well, it turns out that first and foremost, Microsoft has created a protocol, the Secure Device Connection Protocol, SDCP, but none of the computers, even the Surface Pro, has it enabled. The only computer that actually had it optionally enabled was the Lenovo. So Dell did that. However, they said Dell was the easiest to break into. I think, though, looking at the data, I think they broke into Dell first, and the same protocol allowed them to break into Lenovo as well. The problem is that both the Dell and the Lenovo connected the fingerprint reader onto the motherboard utilizing a standard USB port. So all you had to do is man in the middle of the USB port. So somebody gets your computer, they open the top up, you do a man in the middle, attach a different USB port, and what do they use to break into it but a Raspberry Pi? So what they found is that each of these systems, all 3 of them, you could use them on Windows, you could use them on Linux. Actually, I think the Surface did not work well under Linux. The Lenovo worked decently under Linux, and the Dell worked equally well under Linux and under Windows. The problem is that there is an on-session database that says this is a authenticated user, this is a non-authenticated user. Now, these are separate databases, so you can't boot into the system under Linux, establish a fingerprint, reboot under Windows, and then log in with that same fingerprint, because it would appear that the Linux and the Windows uses a different database. But they did a man in the middle to trick the computer into thinking that a Linux validation was actually a Windows validation, and simply connecting an outside man-in-the-middle device allowed them to simply bypass the fingerprint scanner, whether or not the owner of the computer actually set up fingerprint scanning itself, because they just set themselves up as their own user, independent of any other user that was on the system. So that was a very fascinating thing, what they were able to do. Even the Surface Pro, which had a proprietary connection with it really wasn't secure anyway. They were able to get into all 3 of them. I think they said the Surface Pro was slightly harder, but all 3 of them, they said, were fairly easy. So yeah, Windows Hello and all these fingerprint scanners and things like this on computers, not all that secure. If you have a fingerprint scanner on a system, I think the problem we have with this is that it's like it's not a good solution to disable the fingerprint scanner, because any old USB port allows anybody to come by with a fingerprint scanner and break into your system. What a world! What a world! What a world! So just basically, the good news is they would have to have physical access to your device. Encrypt your hard drive, guys, won't be a problem. Honestly, if you encrypt your hard drive, they can get into the system, but they can't decrypt the hard drive itself. If it's on TPM, they can still get into it, if the decryption is on the TPM chip. If it's not on the TPM chip and you're relying on a unsecure, horrible password that we need to get rid of, they're not going to be able to break into it. So the old things are the better, guys. Have a really good, secure, separate disk encryption that is not tied to the TPM chip and someone cannot get into your system with an external fingerprint device. That was a very fascinating read, though. You got to read that article. It's totally awesome. All right. So today, if you want to help support the channel, you can head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/TOMM. That'll help support all three of my channels. Let me get rid of that so you can see the last one. So that'll help support all three of my channels. So you can jump on over here and help support us. Patreon.com/TOMM. And if you are a supporter on this or Locals or Subscribestar or Think Life Media, we did publish the short story for the month that is up there relating to IoT technology. I think you can read the first few paragraphs on Locals without paying, just with a login. So if you want to read the first little bit, head on over to Locals. But you can find that over on Patreon, and the audiobook is available for download. With that, we're going to head on over to business news. First up in business news, so all sorts of fun stuff has been coming out with the Google stuff. We actually got one that wasn't worthy enough to cover in the news. We got some slides from Apple looking at Google going, wow, these guys are doing terrifying things. How can we get in on this? Literally, it's kind of funny. But of course, there's this whole fight right now over the numbers, like how much money you give, and nearly every company has to give like 30 up to 30 or so % to Google for every dollar that goes to any app that's on the Play Store because they're money hungry and they're like, gotta search through all the change. Well, it came out in the court case though that Spotify does not pay any store fees because they have a secret deal with YouTube. I figure, give them a secret deal where you're cutting them back. I'm okay with that. Or have a plan where a small creator pays a smaller amount of revenue out. Of course, that goes counter to the way the business works. But if I'm trying to get off the ground and I'm giving 30% of my revenue to Google, that's kind of crazy. But at least on the Android, you can always sideload the app. So there you have it. But that did come out. Now, this kind of came out with the Epic stuff because Epic was offered a deal down to 11%. So Google typically takes a 15% cut on subscription apps. The fee could be reduced to 11% based on the user billing. So they actually offered Epic a significant decrease on their plan, but Epic didn't want to, and that's what started this whole thing anyway. So now it turns out that Google allows Spotify to be on there with no fees, and Netflix has some reduced fees. So is it okay for them to do that? Absolutely. 100% Google can do that. You can negotiate. You say, I have the biggest distribution of the app. We can negotiate costs. Now, is it foolish for them to say, you guys over there can pay 0, whereas the young creator is going to pay 30%? That does get a little extortive. But at the same time, you can always sideload the app and not worry about it on the Google system, at least for now. We'll probably reverse that at some point in time. But I'm not super mad at Google about this one because it's their business. They're developing a platform. Okay. I have a very simple solution, guys. I have a completely custom ROM. I use F-Droid, and don't have any Google services on my phone at all. So, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. That's for sure. Well, a judge finds reasonable evidence that Tesla knew self-driving tech was defective. And so this is one where Tesla tried to get another one of their cases thrown out. And the judge is like, not quite so fast. And they cited a lot of little things. One of the things that they cited was the commercial, which showed the car self-driving and saying, hey, the person is in the driver's seat just for legal purposes. The car is driving itself, despite all of the quote unquote official terms of service type stuff all says the car can't drive itself, yet all of the marketing to sell people a car says it can drive itself. And so even the name Autopilot sounds like it drives itself, because that's what Autopilot means in the context of a plane. It means you set the parameters and the plane can fly itself. within reason, of course. But at the same time, pilots confirm that in the comments, please. But at the same time, what the judge is looking at in this case, this is another case where Autopilot is engaged and it caused a crash and some people died. And so the Tesla's like, oh, you got to throw that case out. And the judge is like, not quite so fast. He says it would be reasonable to conclude the defendant Tesla, though it's through its CEO and engineers, was acutely aware of the problem with Autopilot failing to detect cross traffic. So in this case, Autopilot did not detect a cross lane of traffic. So it's like I'm not sure if it was a stop sign or what this situation was, but there was some cross traffic going on. And that's what happened is it drove through an area of cross traffic where it probably should have stopped. So the attorney said they were extremely proud of the result based on the evidence of the punitive court. So, Judge Scott said that absent from this video is any indication the video is aspirational or the technology doesn't currently exist. So this is the video they cited. The judge cited a 2016 video showing a Tesla vehicle driving without human intervention in a way to market Autopilot. The beginning of the video shows a disclaimer which says the person is in the driver's seat only there for legal reasons. The car is driving itself. They said absent from the video is any indication that this is the aspiration or that the technology doesn't currently exist. So what they're saying is that, yeah, based on all of your marketing, your click wrap, small print stuff that says you got to have a hand on the wheel, you have to be monitoring, it doesn't drive itself. All of that is irrelevant because all of the marketing is so aggressively pushed towards us. In fact, I saw a podcast the other day. He goes like, I want to get a Tesla, man. The idea of a self-driving car is totally awesome. Like, are you an idiot? Like, really? Are you an idiot? Do you really think this thing is driving itself? You're going to find yourself at the end of a lawsuit when it runs over a child, which we have well-documented case that Tesla cars can't see children. They tend to run them over like rag dolls. So good to see a judge at least looking into this and going, not so much. Of course, now that Elon Musk is one of the bad guys, we'll probably see more cases that rule this side because it's all about politics, not about the law. This is a neat one here. Nothing to see here. If you saw they came out with an aggressive marketing strategy. I know a few companies covered this. Level 1 Tech covered it this week. Of course, since they do their news a week early, they didn't get the update yet. So probably this is going to be a Level 1's news this next week, with the update. Nothing has been promoting their app as a means for you. Get this right. This is like so first world. The color bubble on your iPhone. People apparently are concerned that when they send a message to their friend with an iPhone and they're on an Android phone, the color bubble comes in a different color. Now, most of us know this. But the fact that people are looking for a solution to this and trying to get I'm going to completely get this wrong. My apologies. One of them is a green bubble. I think iPhone to iPhone is a green bubble. And I think an Android to an iPhone is a blue bubble. People are so concerned that they're looking for ways when they send a text message to their friend that their friend's phone shows their message in a green bubble instead of a blue bubble. We are first level idiocracy type problems. So nothing comes out and says, we are going to solve this problem. You can download our app, set your service up, and then we're going to have this solid end-to-end encryption, perfectly secure stuff. And your Android messages are going to come to your friends' iPhones as green bubbles. Hallelujah! And the angels opened up and declared world peace was upon us because the green bubble problem has been solved. The fact we're looking for a solution to this tells us everything we need to know about the intellect of the modern American. We are a country of morons. Oh my God, I need to get a green bubble on my friend's phone. Well, it turned out that nothing's highly secure, amazing, perfectly safe, end-to-end encrypted device had none of that. It was not end-to-end encrypted. Your messages were stored in plain text on a leaky server without security credentials on the database so nobody could gain access to it. Random people could access the database and see your message attachments. Everything that could possibly go wrong with software was wrong with this software. But they pushed it on out anyway, and then they got caught within 24 hours. What? Nothing to see here. So Nothing's iMessage app was a security catastrophe. Turns out companies that stonewall media security problems aren't actually good at security. Yeah, people are asking, like, how are you going to do all this kind of stuff? Oh, don't worry. Trust us, man. It's proprietary. Yep. So last Tuesday, Nothing's Chats, a chat app from Android manufacturer Nothing, and an upstart company, Sunbird, brazenly claimed to be able to hack into Apple's iMessage protocol and give Android's users blue bubbles. Oh, I guess it's blue bubbles instead of green bubbles. Everything I said about the color of the bubbles, just reverse them, I guess. So we immediately flagged Sunbird as a company that's been making empty promises for almost a year and seemed negligent about security. The app launched Friday anyways, was immediately ripped to shreds by the internet for many security issues. It didn't last 24 hours. Nothing pulled the app from the Play Store Saturday morning. Sunbird app, which Nothing Chat is just a reskin of, has also been put on pause. Initial sales pitch for the app was it would log you into iMessage on Android if you had handed over your Apple username and passwords. It was a huge security red flag. It meant Sunbird would need an ultra-secure infrastructure to avoid disaster. Instead, the app turned out to be about as insecure as expected. So from Nothing, we've removed the Nothing Chat's beta from the Play Store and will be delaying its launch until further notice while we work with Sunbird to fix several issues. So how bad was it? 9to5 Google and Text.com uncovered shockingly bad security practice. Not only was the app not end-to-end encrypted, as claimed numerous times, but Sunbird actually logged and stored messages in plain text, both the error reporting software Sentry and Firebase Store. Authentication tokens were sent over unencrypted HTTP, so this token could be intercepted and used to read your messages. Text.com investigation uncovered a pile of vulnerabilities. The blog says when a message or attachment is received by a user, they are unencrypted on the server side until the client sends a request acknowledging and deleting them from the database. This means the attacker subscribed to the Firebase real-time database will always be able to access the messages before or at the moment they are read by the user. Text.com was able to intercept an authentication token sent over unencrypted HTTP and subscribe to changes occurring to the database. This meant the live update of messages in and out of account changes, etc., not just from themselves, but from other people as well. Yeah, so you see, guys, when I talk about we need to not buy into all of these privacy companies, dude, privacy companies are the current fad. They're the current trend. If you want good privacy, you got to find a good open source package, spin up a DigitalOcean, and run it yourself. That's what you got to do. This would be a perfect segue to do a DigitalOcean affiliate spot. But we're actually going to do Synaptergy instead because I haven't done Synaptergy in a while. So I have written a science fiction novel. You can find this anywhere you can buy your books online. So Synaptergy, good family-friendly, clean science fiction novel. You can come to the website over here, synaptergy.com or tlm.li/s. You can read the first chapter if you would like. And you can actually also come down and listen to the first 5 minutes over there on SoundCloud. So you can listen to that. And we do have a list everywhere I know you can get it from, but there's actually a lot more bookstores out there. You can get the book a number of different places online. So go ahead and look around for that online. So with that, you can have a look at Synaptergy and see what the mind of my science fiction looks like. And if you like that, you might also like to subscribe to us on Patreon, Subscribestar, Locals, because we do a short story science fiction short story based on current modern text, current modern trends, things that we talk about here. All of that is available over on those as well. But without any further ado, we got to go to your favorite place and mine. SillyVille calls, guys. Chick-fil-A is now offering drone delivery services. I am extraordinarily upset with Chick-fil-A. Why are they not delivering the chicken with angels? This is God's chicken, is it not? They should be delivering their chicken with angels, but no, they have to go to the globalist tech of drones and use that to deliver their chicken instead. Cutting back on those angels. Chick-fil-A, I see you. But yeah, if you are within a 1.2 mile radius of Brandon, Valacro Chick-fil-A in Central Florida, you will now have the option to have your spicy chicken sandwiches and milkshakes delivered via drone. So if you are in that area, let us know, how does it go? Are they dressing the drone as an angel? That'd be really funny. You know, all of a sudden you're sitting there at your son's game, like we have just ordered the Chick-fil-A, and all of a sudden this angel descends down and says, "This is my beloved chicken in whom I am well pleased," and drops off the chicken and the milkshake and then flies back up. Come on, Chick-fil-A, you are missing an opportunity here. All right. But yeah, if you do want your chicken delivered to you by drone, available between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So go ahead and check it out. Let me know how that goes. That's how you have it. And finally, Windows XP activation algorithm is cracked offline. So there have been cracks that you still had to get online to verify your XP. This actually works by verifying it offline without having to go onto the internet. So if you do have that random Windows XP laying around, you're like, I really want to know what this is like, and you want to run it as an official copy, spin it up in a virtual box, you can run this particular hack and have a completely verified Windows XP that you can run without ever touching the internet. Because if you got Windows XP, you probably want to keep it off the internet. Just saying. Just saying. But there you have it, guys. You can head on over, and the GitHub discussion is down there. That'll give you information about it. This was actually done last year, but it's just kind of making the rounds now. So does anybody else miss that beautiful little field cover? It was so beautiful, wasn't it? I remember those days. Windows XP. It was so fun. But you know what? Linux is so much funner. You should go switch to Linux. All right. Well, if you want to help and support the page, you can jump on over to our locals page, as we were talking about earlier, switchedtolinux.locals.com. Head on over there. You can join in the community and interact with the posts over there. And with that, guys, we're going to wrap up this one here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.